Hello and welcome to Warblog. I'm going to play this man hammer game. Just a couple little words. I got a bit mad with the games. Started Hasaka, Chaldea, and Battle of Havaz all at the same time, and none of them were finished. But I did this one at the same time in the same manic state. Not that I am manic. I just wanted to do them all, and so I started them, and hopefully I'll be able to finish them now that they're sort of started. Because you can't sort of half start them because you just get lost in this big long list and never see them again. So I sort of have to do it this way. But these other games look particularly good. But I'm going to play this one because it's sort of complete. The other thing to point out is now I had some sort of dodgy thing and I had to reset Firefox, and now I've got my ads back. I usually have an ad blocker. It's a bit ironic because I have ads on my site. Maybe you can see them, maybe you can't. So far I've earned probably about 15 pence. For those of you who don't know what pence is, it's like nothing at all. So, but as you can see, it's showing a relevant Liberators ad with these tanks and things. It's just like that's what wargaming is really across the internet. Sort of stupid little icons, and it's all graphics, isn't it? I mean, anyway, I'm not going to labour on that. So I want to play this man game. So we'll press. There's the little advert again. Look at that. He follows me around. There's no adverts on the game. Maybe that's intentional. There's some adverts down there though. Oh, okay, forget the adverts. I'm not trying to suggest anything. I just, obviously you can see them. But anyway, I did this, and of all the sort of four that I'm sort of doing, and I'm just in the mood. I want to do Somalia as well. I just want to do everything. I just want to make games, and I don't really have any time. But anyway, this is the man, whatever it is. The village is called Man, and it's in Hama, which is in Syria. I didn't necessarily do this for any particular reason in its own right. It's just I was looking through the list of games and sort of thinking, well, it's been a while since I've done any sort of these pointless Syrian Iraqi scenarios where there's not much to it. But what dawned on me when looking at the games was that it still carries with it an ambience, or sort of a zeitgeist, so to speak, a time and place of, well, I sort of remember that, and that's something that I'm also looking to get in the sort of contemporary sort of portfolio of games. You sort of go back and say, well, because I can remember 2015, I did a few, but when 2016's over, these won't be, they're a little edgy because they're new, but they'll just be historic. And 2018 comes along, and so that's sort of why I'm doing it, just to get a bit of that flavour, because obviously they're based on real events, and also the thing about this is what sort of also dawned on me, and as ever I spend minutes and minutes talking about doing anything. I do enjoy talking, so not to worry, is that I actually quite enjoy these silly little games, the ones where there's only a few counters like this one, and I was sort of thinking, well, no one would really want to play this game because it's silly. I mean, when we go through it, you maybe realise, and I don't think it is silly, to be quite honest. I like the sort of simulation part of it. I like sort of running through it and just doing it. I don't need it to be sort of like incredibly complex or well balanced. I've said this a number of times, but it's still so true. So I'm going to play this anyway, and maybe I'll continue on that sort of theme as I play through. Now, the first thing to say is it's the rebels. Now, and it's the same with the other game we just made. It's, you know, this isn't ISIS, so this is actually Ara Ash Sham. Now, in the south front link, they call them something like Ara Asham. Well, it's slightly different, and I think that's one of the things that is sort of not so much telling, but apparent to some extent across all of these sort of scenarios. Is the names of these rebel groups seems to change intermittently over time, as though there's no real translation or no one's really sure what these people are. But they're not ISIS. They're Ara Asham in this case, which is the ones that I had them named as before. So I'd created these Ara Asham units a long time ago, to be quite honest, and they were in the sort of folder. But in the south front link that this scenario is linked to, they're not called Ara Asham. It's something very, very similar, so not to worry about that. But anyway, now the thing with this is pretty much left to right, east to west is the front line between the rebel held areas, and that's what the sort of the map calls it in the south front, and the other link, the Darrow, I can't remember his name, some sort of French sounding name, does lots of maps. It's the rebels, and then down here it's the Syrian army. So this is like the borderline, you know. So all this territory along here is probably a little bit sort of interchangeable. It describes Man as a strategic location, but I can't really see it as that. Now, I haven't developed this map as fully as I maybe could have, but these look far more strategic. You know, this is a big junction, this is a big junction, this is in the middle of nowhere. To get from anywhere to anywhere, you could easily go around that. I don't see what's so strategic about this. I just think this is a bit of what you might describe as a border conflict. Anyway, so is that a good move? So essentially the Ara Asham units are going to try and take out Man. Now I think it's a sort of border thing, so I don't think this is a great initiative. And I think one of the things that I've sort of mentioned a lot of times before is that I think it's quite difficult for the Syrians to actually police or guard all of these little villages. So I think they're just probably raiding, you know, they're like raiding the villages, and it's not really, you know, an attempt to extend their territory. They're probably raiding it. They know there's some military presence there, take ammunition, supplies, food even, you know, all that sort of stuff, and then go away. And maybe, I don't know, I don't really know what's happening there, but we can certainly move our little counters around. So we're getting a bit silent there because I'm thinking these motorized units have quite a lot of movement. Yeah, I think I said this a while back, but I should really maybe sort that out. So I think I'm going to leave these air units here, these air defense units, and here we go with the assault. And look, there's my advert. I mean, look at this. This is what war games are about. I mean, what's this? It's sort of, what's that? It's our arse, a short skirt, stupid face, and a big gun, and huge tits, and some big tanks. And what, am I supposed to click on this and then want to play some really modern war game that's going to satisfy my gargantuan intellect? I don't think so. You know, that's like porn, isn't it? It's just, I don't know, I find these games sort of, there's an industry that's basically mindless. And it's frustrating, really, because you want to play these games. Look, he's smiling. I mean, look, this is one of these games where you get all these resource points and you just build these bombers and planes out of this thing, and they magically appear. No supplies seem to go in; they just magically keep appearing. It's a bit like Command and Conquer. I used to quite enjoy that years ago. I mean, these games are not that bad, but they're mixing ultra modern imagery and concepts with cheap ass gamification systems. And a lot of these, you actually, to do well, you've got to buy with real money extra resources. That's the trick. I've not played this game, but I'll have to maybe make a note to turn my ads back off. I'm going to do this attack because otherwise I'll every time I do a video I'll be talking about how crap these ads are. 7-1, defender eliminated. Now, it's sort of interesting, really, because I don't know what happened historically. And I always like to sort of reinforce. I mean, it's not as though I'm saying no kittens were hurt in this game, but defender eliminated basically means they were instantly routed. I mean, they could have all survived. They could have just routed straight off. I mean, this is the result of this battle. They're no longer there. It doesn't mean they're all beheaded or something like that. So let's see what we can do. Well, this might help. So that's the first Ara Asham move. Next, I did envisage taking it a little longer than that. I must admit, I thought it would take one turn to get into position, second turn to do the assault, third turn to maybe complete the assault, and by that time the Syrian units would sort of be entering. Now, I left this one here as sort of, not so much a red herring, but it was sort of quite deliberate, because what are you going to do with it? Well, he's not going to counterattack, so the Syrians are going to end their turn there. It's now I want to get the names right at least, Ara Asham rebel turn. So now they have completed their objective of taking over the village of Man in Hama province, I think that's what it's called. So they're just going to sit there now with their new conquest, probably looting, pillaging the things that you might imagine they might be doing in there. I'm assuming that they might be doing that because I'm assuming that they might not want to keep it, and so they're just going for resources as opposed to maybe trying to suddenly start indoctrinating them and getting rid of all the Syrian army imagery and things and replacing it with their own. It's interesting really because you sort of think, I try to be, was it partisan or non-partisan? I don't choose sides. A lot of these people in these villages probably welcome the Ara Asham units. And maybe one of the reasons they went there. There's going to be a divide in there, people that are for and against, and I think it's like the one of my favourite films, the Good, the Bad and the Ugly, and Tuco and the Man with No Name see the Confederate army coming along, and they say, "Hooray, hooray!" Or yeah, that's it. There's hooray for Yankee, and they turn out to be rebels, or the other way around. But there's another one where the hotel keeper, he sees the Confederates or the Yankees, I can't remember which way around it goes, coming in, and he swaps a picture around on his wall accordingly to support the new army in town. And I think that might be a little bit the case in all these villages. They probably don't care. They probably just want them to go away. Well, not necessarily go away personally, but whatever, and so these people are now taking over administration, and they do taxes and all sorts. So anyway, what we can see now is that the Syrian units now have some Russian airplanes. Now they've only got one sortie. They get some more later on, but that was just to indicate that the Russians sort of came in and they are there. 1-to-1 odds, DR. Well, that was interesting. But it's nearly 15 minutes. I can't believe this is going to be a 30-minute video for this little game, but I guess I'll do that. See you soon. Okay, so the Asham rebels have captured Man. Historically, I mean, from the article, I'm not sure what they did. They seem to have assaulted it, and the Russian Air Force have come in quite quickly and bombed them. So they've all got Depression 3. That's interesting. What's the depressions? Depression 3. Why did that airstrike cause so much damage? I mean, no matter. I mean, it did. They're all at Depression 3. I wonder if I can click the back button. It was 1-to-1. They got a DR. That gave them all Depression 3. So that was actually a pretty hefty result, and I can't figure out why, but it doesn't matter. Might matter. And they must have got a good result or something. What did they get? DR. Yeah, I guess a DR is 3 and exchange is 1, so they did really well. But I think I'm not going to dwell on it too much because I sort of naturally want to. It's actually quite an interesting result because that's the sort of thing that the Russian Air Force do. They cause fairly significant damage. Again, the air defence didn't seem to do anything, and I'm beginning to suspect that it doesn't work. I keep saying that, and I keep never getting around to doing it because it's just a lot of work. I don't have time to start thinking like that. But anyway, so they're in there, so it's now the Syrian turn. And as you can see, news of their assault into Man has been relayed back to the Syrian High Command, who have instructed some units to attend the scene, starting off with this mechanized infantry battalion. So let's get them going up there. Well, what's their movement like now? So it's half their move. Well, I'm going to have to do something about this movement as well. Way too much. I think what I'm going to do now. This is one of the reasons I sort of went in the write-up. I set a scenario up like this because you've got to sort of make some decisions, which is what I think wargaming is all about, as to how you approach this. Now, I think they're going to all park up in Kokab. Now, you sort of think, well, what are they doing there? I mean, these people are digging in, but in Kokab, they're probably reassuring the residents. I mean, if you were to think like that, then we'd have to go and visit Kafsin as well. But Kafsin might be sort of one of these places that's a little more marginal, what with the border being right across there. But, you know, they're killing two birds with one stone, but we might as well sit here for a while. Now, we could go in with a full frontal assault. 2, 4, 6. They've got 8 strength points. So that'd be a 1 to 2, so they would never win. But because they're mechanized infantry versus just infantry, even though they're motorized, that would be sort of, they would be worth about, well, I can't remember, they'd probably be worth about 6. So they're still not 1 to 1. So we'll end that turn. It's now the rebel turn. Asham rebels. And let's have a look at what's happening here. I wonder if that's actually working. I don't know what colour it was in the beginning to start off with. Oh, they're rebels. Maybe it was. They converted it that quickly in 3 turns. Maybe they have. Oh no! Oh, it doesn't matter. So they're now digging in, and now we've got some Syrian army infantry who are going to move a little slower, I imagine, but still, according to all this. Oh no, that's their move. And the artillery. Okay. I think we're going to maybe threaten them a little bit. Now that's probably about 8 miles away. So it's not exactly, within rifle shot. But probably near enough for the rebels, I'll just call them the rebels, it's easier, the rebels to realise there's someone out there. No, they're not going to do anything, they're just going to sit there. Now this is I'll get onto something, a little thought I keep having. The rebels are not going to do anything. Well, I'll just go into it. I mean, essentially, I like to play this, as a game to sort of think, well, what's happening here? So obviously the scenario is Man, which is in Hama in Syria. The units of the Ara Hasham rebel force have taken Ham and are doing whatever they do in there, which I discussed some of the options variants before. And they could very well be digging in. But what I'm sort of getting to here is, as they realise the Syrian army are approaching, I think, even from not so much from a gaming perspective, from a sort of simulation perspective, they would leave or go back. I mean, there's obviously a reason why this is a front line, so it's probably contested. So we can assume that there's a mix of rebels and Syrian army around here and here. We don't really know, but what I'm saying is, the whole idea of fighting this to the bloody end isn't something that's sort of, I think if you're going to play this in what I would say an intellectually critical way, you might run away, so you don't get blown to bits by, at the very least, some mechanized infantry, which is, heavily armored cars with fairly hefty cannons on them. They're not going to just sit there and get blown to bits. I mean, they've achieved their objective. They've eliminated a Syrian company. They've probably looted everything. They're probably putting up the image of defence. But anyway, I do reserve the right to just play it like a game, because it is a game. I mean, in the format. So we'll leave the rebels there, but bearing in mind that they might seriously be thinking of leaving, especially now as another Russian airstrike comes in. That's interesting. That's because he comes on next turn. He's not here yet, but the thing hasn't figured that out, so that's another little bug I'll have to sort out. He's like a reinforcement. So, or he's the one that was there originally. I think he's the one that was there originally. He shouldn't be there. He's been used. So that's actually something I've not encompassed before. Because usually I don't have, I'll have air units on that come on for 10 turns. He came on. He was the unit that was only allowed for one sortie. And then there are a couple of turns, but they didn't have any air support. So I'll have to figure that out. He's got no movement left, so he shouldn't be there. Now that was an exchange, so they should be all on 2 now. So an exchange caused 1 fatigue, a DR, and they still didn't get their air defence in there. Again, I'm getting sick of hearing myself saying, I need to look at their air defence. So the Russian air power has been hurting the rebels, which is what you'd want it to be doing. The Syrian army have now moved their infantry into Kobab, thus pacifying the inhabitants. because of their presence, the mechanized infantry are going to move in this direction in order to provide the people of Kafsin with some support. And that's it for the movement there. Now, I've still got a little bit of movement on this, so I think we should be able to do an artillery strike into there now. Yes, so well, it's a 1 to 4, so there's not a lot of point just using artillery. Should have just gone like that. So, as the Syrian player, we now have all our bits on the table. And now, the Asham will be thinking, well, there's some tanks coming now. Shall we run away? See, what was sort of tempting, but I think it's a bit late, would be to move and create an extended line. But they don't have enough units to do a surrounding, and they could pull this one out, that would give them 5. You need 6 for a full surround, so we're never going to be surrounded, so we might as well hold, because we'll always be able to retreat. So rebels are going to hold, and here come, so here's some more Russian air power. Yeah, turn sequence on that is not very good. The helicopter is, so that was another exchange, so they should be back to 2s. Well, they tried to hold their ground. I'm not even going to think of the odds, but 1 to 1. But that's pushed them up to depression 3, which means their minimum is now 1. They can't really counter attack because these units are just too tough. They've all got defense of 4. This will probably come into play next turn, I predict. The rebels are going to hold for 1 more turn. I don't think they can really counter-strike against anything. If they did it with this infantry unit, 2, 4, 6, 8. So that'd be 2 to 1, but they're depressed, so it'd be basically a 1 to 1, and they'd lose their defense. So I'm not going to do that. It's now the Syrian turn, so I think this air power should now be in play. Helicopters, yes. So it's that first turn crappy stuff again. I thought I sorted it out, but so that an exchange really, because they didn't do anything, they recovered. So they've gone back down. They've gone back down to well, they were at 3. Should have done them both separately. Okay, so they're at 2 anyway. Syrian army not doing very well, and it's coming up to another 15 minutes. It's still interesting. I do like these small little units, these small unit engagements. I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so this is the third instalment. I think I was talking about how much I like these little games. Actually, if not, I'll talk about that now anyway. I do like these little games because they're just so simple, and that they're actually quite fulfilling. I think not a lot happens. I mean, we've sort of already covered, the notion of advancing and protecting these places, and I think, obviously just the limitations of the rules. In assuming that we've got, I don't want to say police, but we've got some sort of sub-company presence in these places, just sort of letting them know that we've got, a fairly major military presence around Man, taking care of the rebels. But there's a lot to sort of read into what is essentially geographically just so simple and numerically so simple. The situation that we've got here now is that we've failed twice to assault Man. We've taken, I would say heavy casualties, but there's been two sort of major drives and they've failed. But again, the rebels have actually taken quite a lot of damage. I'm not sure why they've recovered so much, but they've taken a lot of damage, and so it's sort of a waiting game now. And I think, let me have a look. They've moved, so it's going to be the end of turn. Now they're sitting there digging in, tugging 13. How did we get that far so quickly? That's crazy. Well, we're at 11 turns. I don't know how that's happened. Anyway, turn 11 already. Wow. Okay, well, not to worry. They're sort of digging in, but they've actually taken fairly heavy losses. They're at depression 3 now, but they're just going to hold. So they're now at depression 2, but they're not going to go any lower than that, I don't think. We started to dig in here as the Syrians. In fact, I'm not sure whether I did forget or not. But what we're actually going to do this turn is, this is a sort of carry on from, I like the small game sort of comment, is that, well, they're depression 0 now. They're depression 0, so they're actually recovered. I think everything's recovering twice a turn. I don't know why. It's a bit late for me to be thinking. Again, that unit has already been committed and used, so that's a bug that's going to have to be worked out at some point. So I'm going to take it out with one at a time, because I think I get 1-to-1 both times. Now that shows that the anti-air defense is working. That unit's flight was aborted. Not to worry about the missing thing. It means I've got another, just a little slash that I've missed out, but obviously I'll have to do that so that the unit appears. But basically that unit should be there. That image. It doesn't matter. That was interesting. So I'm going to go in with the helicopters. No results at 1-to-2. Okay, so essentially what I'm saying, well, this is interesting. What I was saying is a waiting game. Now the Syrians are going to sit there, and then I thought they were on depression 2, and they're going to sit there and basically wait until they had. I wonder if there could be another reason why these appear to be recovering quickly. And they're going to sit there and wait until they had recovered fully, during which the ISIS, the rebels, would also sit there wondering what the silence was. And that was what I was thinking in the interlude whilst I was loading the other video up, is the silence. We've not actually done anything. We've not attacked. And we must have had a few turns now and the Syrian units have, because they failed twice to assault, they've just sat there until they've recovered. So that's been sort of maybe a day or so whilst they sort of figure out what went wrong, maybe fix some of their vehicles, and obviously, as you can see, start digging in. But now that we're fully recovered, we're going to try that again because we know it's going to be a 1-to-1 odds. And hopefully this time we fail again. So this is where it gets sort of even more interesting from my point of view, because the Syrians are clearly not doing anything. Now they're causing damage to the to the rebels. That was an exchange, and now okay. Okay. Essentially, the rebels are contemplating withdrawing. They've been involved now in 3 exchanges, which means they've been attacked 3 times and they've repulsed 3 times. So they're probably feeling quite good. But at the same time, that's had a toll. The inevitable is coming. They've done quite well. And what I'm sort of thinking, under cover of darkness, this is how they sort of quite often do things, that they would leave. They might be thinking, well, we better leave now whilst we can. Otherwise, we might get surrounded. All we need now is for this road to be blocked. So let's end that turn. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this unit out here, then move him back in there, although I could have just shuffled him round. Now what he's done, he's blocked this road, so you can sort of, the road from Man to Azima has now been closed to the rebel units, to the Ar-Asham rebels. And we're also putting pressure on the last road to At-Sham. They can't just drive down it now because there's a zone of control. There's 2 zones of controls to go through. They go 1, 2. So that move has sort of limited the rebel retreat options. I'm going to send the aircraft back in. No result. So maybe we should use them both at the same time. No result. That's disappointing. Oh, let's just have a quick look at their. See, they seem to be going down. I'm sure they were at 3. See, then they're not. The depressions are going down. They're recovering, so that the depression thing's not working. There's so many things now not working. I don't understand it. I'll have to. I'm really going to have to start commit a weekend to going under the hood again. They shouldn't be. Once they're up to 3, that means they were up to 4, which means they couldn't get down to 2. Okay. Well, this is going to be another 1-to-1, but this is the 4th assault. If they fail on this, then it's going to have significant another exchange. Maybe they never got up to 4. Maybe it was only 3. Now, that was the 4th exchange, and I'm sort of trying to think, well, what would be happening? I mean, basically, it's pretty much a standoff, but I'm not really sure that the Syrian army would just leave. But you know, it doesn't look good. I don't know what to think. I know I'm recording, so I would sort of sit back and have a think about what that means. I mean, you know, if you were to read the headlines, sort of, you know, stalled and advance, you know, Syrians halted at Man's rebels, you know, dig in and resist fiercely, etc., etc. It's not a big place, so I think we could almost sort of call it a day there, but I'm going to go for um, one more sort of round here. Now, I think one of the things that might be playing it here is that they've. Let's just see what happens. So they're still at depression 2. They're at depression 0, so they're recovering too quickly. I think what happens is they get depressed. But no, that's not right. Now we've not got any more air power. I think there is some more air power soon, like on turn 18. No result. One-to-one assault. And finally, now this is probably opportune, and they retreat to there. Should have retreated to there. So we've budged the rebels, and they should have some movement, which we use to now we could do that again. Three to one. Another defender retreat. So two good rolls. So the Syrians are finally pushed ahead. Now that's another bug. You really have to go under the hood at some point and figure all this out. That is the same unit. It shouldn't be there and there. Because it's there, it's being shown there. And yeah. Anyway, so they've retreated. Now they're at depression 5. So I'm going to end that turn. They were at depression 5. What are they now? Still at 5. But the difference here being that we're going to run away. I can go there. 2, 3, 4, 5. That's as far as I can go. So those are the air defense units. So what Syrians have got their Apache helicopter. Let's see what I can do. No result. We could sort of follow up. One of the limiting factors is the infantry and the artillery, which will only be able to move 3 hexes, 1, 2, 3, so they're not going to be able to get there. But we could put the artillery into range. But what I'm going to do, because we've only got 30 seconds left, I'm going I'm going to say, okay, well that's it. So no time for a review. I'm not going to do another video, but basically you can see what's happened. I think it's quite interesting. I hope you enjoyed that, and you can play it yourself online. See you later, bye. Okay, so I'm feeling inclined to do a post-game review. Not that I'm going to make a habit of it, but just sort of complete what I was thinking, because it sort of ended abruptly. Essentially, obviously, the rebel units, the Para Asham rebels, came out from Atsham from the north and essentially captured Man, small village, and they kept it. They received some, very sure they received very significant damage from an early Russian airstrike, and then the Syrian units essentially entered the field and protected Kobab, and then later extended that wing across to Kafshin to reassure the locals that all was in order and the rebels were not going to go any further. I think that's an important consideration. And then when the Syrians, in this case, as we played it, were grouped, they went in for some assaults, but they actually didn't succeed. Now, they didn't lose, didn't get an attack or retreat. They just got exchanges, which means that their sort of vehicles being pinned down and chaos was ensuing, and yeah, all sorts of things. Maybe they just sort of thought they were being shot at from more places than they were, and essentially the rebels pretty much held out. They held out for quite a while, with fairly extended Russian airstrikes sort of coming in, including the Syrian artillery, which was also involved. There was a stage, it might be in my imagination, where the Syrian units were not doing anything because they were recovering. So when they got up to 2 fatigues, as I thought they did, although I can't really remember because I'm a bit tired, but I'm sure that's what happened. Either that happened and I just can't really quite place it, or there's something wrong with the game. Wouldn't surprise me if the latter's true, but it still works. I'm going to sort this out. I need to kind of do what I know. But essentially, in theory, this is the way I was thinking about it. When they got up to 2 depressions, they halted their offensive activity, and essentially, which resulted at the end of the day in them sort of digging in around Man until they were sufficiently reorganised. So they went through a reorganisation program, and I think it's that what that actually involved, or not so much involved, what that resulted in was things going silent. And I think that's something that doesn't happen in a lot of games, where you're playing a game against, say, someone else, and you don't do anything for 5 turns, and the other person says, why aren't you doing anything? Well, okay, in a lot of games you could be recovering. There could be rules for sort of recovering fatigue, doing this, doing that. A lot of people, say in the Napoleonics or things like that, they might sort of pull units back, and a lot of this comes down to doctrine, having a unit in reserve to replace fatigued frontline units, etc., etc. But essentially that's how I played it, although it didn't really take that long to do. And then once the Syrian army had regrouped and recovered from those first 2 failed assaults, they went in and did a couple more. And to be quite honest, they should have, every time they do one, they get a fatigue. So I either did one, and then, what's their fatigue like at the moment? Depression 0. So they're either recovering too quickly, or maybe I'm just not, linking the turns up properly. So anyway, after assaulting, failing, recovering, assaulting, failing, recovering, as far as I see it, and then making a successful assault. Now that final successful assault was actually, not so much done under duress, but there was a lot of sort of, well, should we do this last one? Because we had 4 in a row where we've not made any ground. They could be losing manpower, hardware, but more importantly, to some extent, the media effects, the political effects. In some extent, what the BBC says isn't really going to affect them. But locally, they don't really want to be seen to sort of be losing a lot. They might say, "Well, we're actually just going to sit here, and we're doing other things." Not maybe do that last attack, some other time. But basically postpone it, even put it off and not do it, and maybe sort of just leave them in there. Say they're doing mine clearance or IED clearance, or they're basically entrenching, or they're preparing for a particular strategy, or they're resupplying, or I don't know, whatever they might say. But basically, after that 4 failed assault, I think the Syrian army would be thinking, well, we're not, as a gamer, you just go in and you just keep trashing them until you win, which is inevitable, really. I mean, it's just a die roll. But anyway, they got that 5th assault, and the Asham rebels retreated, and then they were actually followed up partially by the Syrian army, forcing them into even deeper depression. But we've advanced as far as here, but then halted, because I think the whole objective was to take here, and we're not going to just follow these units off. We could, but we've got to assume that there's other hostile units here. It's just unknown territory. They're not going to risk splitting up their forces and running into a trap or something. And so this is the game end. But what I am going to do quickly, I'm going to end this turn. So depression 4 in this turn. Depression 3 in this turn. Depression 2 in this turn. Depression 2. Depression 1. Okay, so we've got a definite error there. Depression 1. Depression 1. Okay, they seem to be maxed out at 1, so I don't know. I think what could possibly be happening is when they get a DR, then when they get a retreat, it's not pushing their maximum fatigues up, because there is basically there's a secondary filter, there's a secondary database entry for maximum. So when they get, I think what's happening is when they get an exchange, it goes up by 1. When they get a DR, it goes up by 3. But what happens is it calculates the new total, and then it basically adds that up. If it's the maximum, then it will put that into the maximum column. But what it looks like is happening when they're getting a DR, defender retreat, it's not modifying the maximum column. So essentially, as far as the maximum column is concerned, it's something that happened earlier, which is 3 from the air power. I think I know what's happening. So basically, I don't want to bore you too much with the technical details, but I mean, basically, there are multiple ways of getting disruptions, but not all of them are pushing up the maximum disruption flag as it should be. And so when we're getting a DR, the flag's not going up, and so it's recovering back down to what they had. But if I were to get a DR and go up by 3 and then get an exchange, that exchange would then say, okay, well, you had a 3 and now you want a 4, so your maximum is a 4, and that would affect it. So if you understand what I'm talking about, it's pretty simple, but I'll have to go in and sort that out along with all the other things. I might even watch this video to find out what they are, but doing work on the mechanics is just so time consuming, and it's quite difficult. So anyway, in this sense, in this scenario, we sort of played it out fairly sort of historically. I mean, you would expect the you know, whatever this is, a regiment, you know, combined arms to beat, you know, just well, they're actually a regiment as well, aren't they? A little regiment, strong. You would have thought that the Syrians would have won with armor, mechanized units, artillery. Because you do get pluses. You know, the armor is like times 1.7 against infantry and motorized. So you would have expected them to win, but it was a little harder push than I imagined. I think another thing, not so much a factor, was the quick disintegration of the defending units. I didn't realise that it would go so quickly, but I think the odds were about 7-1. Maybe they should have started entrenched. But yeah, so anyway, so the rebels came in, they took the village, held it for a few turns. The Syrians came out, and after a few failed or non-conclusive assaults, they managed to rout the rebels out of the village, chased them for a bit, and then pretty much secured the village and restored order on the front line. And that's pretty much sort of what happened. But I think that the rebels didn't actually ever capture the village. I think they assaulted it and maybe entered it, but I don't know. I mean, no one really knows, and I haven't really read too far into it. It's just one of those little sort of, it's one of those little short things on the South Front site that I quite often read, and it just sort of says Syrian rebels fight Syrian army, you know, in this village, and blah blah blah. It's just a little thing, and there's no sort of order of battle or sort of, 50 people died. And that's what it said, so it was sort of fairly significant. But again, just to reiterate, the reason I sort of done this was mainly just to add another stepping stone in the sort of the historic sense of what's the content that's on this site. I mean, this is the man battle. It was a very small one, but you know, in 2018 it would be sort of, oh, I remember that one, and especially I remember it when I've done it, when I played it through. You know, so all I'm hoping is that as a potential player, if you're watching this video, you're one of the 3 people that watch my videos, you know, in total. I'm joking, but obviously 30 days, but whatever. I mean, basically, if you're watching this video, what I'm saying is you might enjoy playing it, even though it's not War and Peace, even though it's not the Eastern Front, World War III, even though there's only like 10 counters. Hopefully you can say, well, hang on, I can see some, how this might be interesting, which is what it's all about. I mean, I've been playing this now. This is the 4th video. It's an hour long, just doing that little thing. Now you know what's going to happen, but it's just sort of thinking about what's happening and trying to sort of actually determine, other considerations. Now I've been doing it in the video, and it's a bit different thinking because I'm trying to think aloud. And to be quite honest, I sort of think, how long would that take me if I just did it without doing a video? And I'd probably do it a little quicker. But I'd be quite inclined maybe to sort of start again and then sort of run through all the permutations. So yeah, so I mean, hopefully, what I'm saying is it's a small scenario, but hopefully you can see the merits of it and maybe be inclined to, I'm not trying to say it, I'm assuming that you've signed up already, but you can see the merits of it and be inclined to play it, even though it's small. But even if you are, even if you haven't signed, even if you aren't a member, I mean, hopefully you can see the sort of the interest in playing it and will sign up. I mean, just to sort of reiterate, I keep saying this, it might sound a bit boring, but I really do like these smaller ones. I'm doing another one now that's sort of mega epic, and they're just too involved. I just like to sort of sit here, fire up the screen, move some counters around, have a think, and job done. That's what I need, to some extent. But I do like the challenge of the bigger games. So I think, there's I'm quite happy with the sort of nature of these little ones. Anyways, it's coming along to the end of recording, and so I will see you later. Cheerio. Bye.